Data or information classification. Typical definition from the internet. What is it? It's organizing data in categories based on its sensitivity. I mean, it's very simple to learn and to say it again, but what does it actually mean? And what is the tricky part of it? The tricky part, first of all, is there's just too many categories. I mean, if you go to the internet, you search for data types, you find definitely more than 10. Is it good? Well, no, because you may have to think about, when you're looking at a piece of data, say, which category does it fit in? And is it then only one category, or is it multiple categories? Yes, some categories are a little bit more distinctive. So you may look at it and say, public is definitely different to secret and private. But isn't private also secret? Or maybe business critical? So even public data could be business critical, because if it's not available, your customers don't get the information, they don't get the brochure, they don't get the news. It's public information, there's nothing to hide, but if it's not there, your business doesn't run, because maybe your business is based on it, sharing public information, making it available. So that's the tricky part. I mean, getting confused with too many categories, not knowing where to start and where to end, might be the first challenge. What I recommend is to think about it and say, why are you doing this classification in the first place? Why is it not that you, I mean, if you look at it from a cybersecurity point of view, you obviously want to protect this data. But there's still the three categories, typical thing, confidentiality, but also integrity and availability. So what are you actually protecting? Which part of the data aspect you want to ensure? Do you want to have it 100% available all the time, or not being tampered with? And of course, when there's confidential data, only to the ones who should see it. And that's where it's getting messy, because there's certain cybersecurity measures that you could apply. For example, encryption. So public data, do you need to encrypt it because you anyway publish it publicly? So you would have to share the keys with everyone. But sometimes the data itself is the public, but the way the data is stored, because some public data is also worth something, especially in a certain quantity, and you don't want it to be stolen or copied for no reason. And therefore you have to maybe encrypt your data structure or your paths or your storage location, things like that. So I would say there's no real use case where you say this is absolutely open. Everything that's on that website, including the website itself, is public and everyone can take it. Because there's always a certain component. So working from that angle, there's no such ideal case where we can say, oh, lucky this is public, now we have to do nothing to protect it. That's absolutely wrong. So if we work that field the other way around and say, what if I treat everything as if it's strictly confidential? So I apply exactly the same security measures to it. It's just that in some cases I can loosen them up a little bit and I can have more users, or I can have an easier access management process. But by default, I just do the same thing, strong as possible, and protect it. And then for me, at least, when I have to maintain that infrastructure later, it is easier, because you don't want an operator being confused and saying, okay, this server was super encrypted, the other one was not encrypted, here I have to do this, here I have to do that. Sure, you could say in the cloud everything is easier and there's like so many native services that you can use. Still, it's complexity. Complexity comes not due to the fact that the design is complex, but complexity sometimes comes from all kinds of variety that has to be entertained in terms of infrastructure, data structure, connections, interfaces, whatever. Yeah. So the more you have a blueprint, the more you follow, the better it is. And then why you don't take the most secure blueprint and just apply it to all of them? Yes, there's a cost to it, but trust me, when you compare and you do the full deep dive business case and say, if I overpay on the security measures here, because if I would have classified the data differently, I could have let loose on some of the measures. Your analysis cost money to reassess it and to keep track of it, because some data today is maybe only internal, but tomorrow it becomes confidential due to some regulation change. So you have to do anyway a change management process. You have to anyway reassess the whole situation, and there will be a technical debt behind it. If you do it straight away to the max, then at least you know how it's done. It's all the same. If you want to automate something, if you want to simplify something, even when you want to give it to another vendor to do, you have the same pattern, and it can be easier maintained than 10 different data types, 10 different operating models, 10 different encryption mechanisms, 10 different structures, 10 different types of interfaces, and then the complexity creeps in and you have to explain, and every time there's a problem you will have to reassess all these 10 different cases, and you will go nuts, and you will spend more time and more money on that. So therefore, don't get crazy. I mean, I still recommend you should look at it then and do the sanity check and say, isn't there something that I can filter out which is less important? So I may have like a fortress approach for the real critical stuff, and for everything that is slightly in the middle, I have a slightly reduced security approach, a very easy to operate, so that you're not taking yourself ransom, let's say, with your encryption. And but I wouldn't recommend to say there's an area which is totally Wild West and you don't have to do anything there, because that is an illusion. There's always something to protect. So therefore, maybe 2 categories is just nice, because you say strictly confidential and internal, yeah. If you want to follow this definition, or you just say strictly to be protected and medium protection level. Let's say not using these terminologies, which are a little bit biased. If you look at the data, then you may think, what is an internal data? Org chart. Yeah. Is it confidential? Maybe sometimes. Is it strictly confidential? Well, one part of the org chart maybe yes. You just get dizzy, right? So just say, okay, org chart in general could be going up to strictly confidential, especially when there's like board member change or whatever. Put it in a strictly confidential bucket, protect it strictly confidential, and just keep it there. And everything else that is somewhat like some presentation material or whatever, as long as it's not sensitive, super sensitive, keep it in the other bucket, but still apply a very good 80% security approach on it, and also include the measures to it. Therefore, here the last thought is focus on protecting and not classifying, because over-engineering the whole process. You may have to have asset managers that have to look at all these things, and every asset has to be reclassified. Yes, there's tools, there's automation, sure. There's a lot of stuff in the industry that you can buy. Each Excel spreadsheet can get a tag. I mean, that's why these things are growing in the industry and in the market, because someone creates the complexity through frameworks and over-engineering the processes, and another one nurtures the topic by providing the tools to make it again easier to manage the complexity that was artificially created in the first place. So therefore, don't get caught in this. There's much more important topics in cybersecurity where you can play the complexity card and where you really have to put thought into it, how you want to do it. But data and information classification, keep it simple. 2 categories, and apply the max. And if you need to make some differentiation, do it, but not into 4 or 5 different categories.